Okay guys, welcome back to the Drive Syncer project. In the previous video we built this shouldIgnore function over here in the gitignore struct, and this is basically going to tell us whether we can ignore a file or we should upload it or whatever, right? And now that we've written this function, we are basically done with the new gitignore parser, and now we can actually start to integrate it with our synchronizing algorithm over here. So as you can see, there's already a couple of errors over here in this file because we're now using the list of gitignore patterns instead of using a list of strings. We're going to need to do a bit of refactoring over here to make this entire algorithm more compatible with our new ignore pattern struct. First thing I'm going to do is over here, let's go and create a new variable called gitignore, and here we will actually create our new gitignore struct. We'll pass in our folder, we'll pass in the global ignore, which will be in .grb.config.ignore. We'll also pass in the read gitignore boolean, which should be in our config over here. And then we don't need any of this code anymore, so we can just comment it out. And over here in the count total files function, we can pass in gitignore.toIgnore. Now this is a list of ignore patterns, not a list of strings, so we do need to refactor this function to accept a list of ignore patterns instead of strings. Now the first thing we need to do is up here create a list of parsed ignores, because we want to convert this into a list of strings. We'll say make a list of strings with a capacity of 0 or a length of 0 but a capacity of the length of the toIgnore list. And then we'll just loop over the toIgnore list, and we'll say parsed ignores dot append pattern dot pattern. There we go. And then over here in this for loop over here, we'll just pass in parsed ignores instead of the toIgnore list. Now instead of looping over the entire ignore list anymore, what we can do is, and also let's also pass in the gitignore struct over here as a pointer, because we are going to need it. And then instead of this entire loop over the ignore list, what we can do is we can just say switch gitignore.shouldIgnore and pass in the path over here along with the dir entry as well. And then let's say if this upload is allowed, then we should just append total files, right? Because we are going to upload this because the upload is allowed. Otherwise, if the return type is ignore dir, we can just return filepath.skipdir. And if it is ignore file, then we can just return nil and move on to the next path, right? And then we don't need any of this code either, so we can just remove it completely. And over here, let's just add a default case like default return nil, just so we satisfy the error. And okay, apparently that doesn't work either, so instead of this, let's just add a return nil outside over here, and that should make that error go away. And make sure to pass that in over here as such. You know, one more thing that I just realized over here, if we're passing the entire gitignore struct over here, we don't need to pass in the ignore list separately, right? What we can do is we can remove this and go back over here and remove this toIgnore from the arguments list, because we're not even using it anymore, right? So back in the upload folder function now, down here, instead of this complicated ignore logic that we previously had, all we just need to say now is gitignore.shouldIgnore, pass in the path, pass in the dir entry, and then just say case ignore dir, return filepath.skipdir, case ignore file, return nil. And just with those 5 or 6 lines of code, we have implemented the entire gitignore logic that we just built in the past 2, 3, whatever videos. Now before testing this out, I'm going to go over to the upload file function, and I'm just going to comment out these logs just for now, because I just want to see the logs of skipping files and folders, right? Just so I know that it's actually working. And we're going to have to replace this response variable with an underscore just so Go stops complaining at me. This is just for testing, guys. Now let's see what happens if I actually run this with the new gitignore logic. Okay, so apparently we were using progress bars and not the actual logs. So the logs should be in the log file over here. Let's just go and look at them over here. So these are all the logs for this current upload. As you can see, it pretty much skipped most of the files over here. Yeah, it pretty much skipped almost every file over here except for the I guess the progress bar, which was changed, the log file, which obviously got changed because we're running the program and it's outputting some logs, the sync file, which we literally just wrote code for it right here. Other than that, it just skipped basically everything, so no extra file was uploaded over here. So yeah, that's the new gitignore parser. It works, and you can also put all sorts of complicated patterns over here, right? Because we've actually added support for all of them over here. So yeah, that works. And I'm gonna stop the video over there, guys. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. We've made a ton of progress in this project, so if you're following along so far, thank you. And yeah, we'll see what we build next time. Quick self-promo plug. This is my professional website, and I'm a freelance developer who makes web and mobile apps for people. If this is something you're interested in, if you want to hire a developer to work on a project, or if you know someone who wants to hire a developer to work on some project, then go to the top link in the description and book a call with me. It's completely free. We'll talk about your project, we'll see what's what, and we'll start working together to make it a reality. If that's something you're interested in, top link in the description. Other than that, thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.